At 6:17 a.m. on February 3rd, 1945, Sergeant William Brophy lay in the frozen snow of the Ardennes, 680 meters from a German observation post. His finger trembled on the trigger of his M1903A4 Springfield rifle. He had only one chance. One shot. If he missed, the position would be revealed, and German mortars would destroy his platoon in minutes. The problem wasn't the distance. Brophy was a trained sniper and had already made more difficult shots. The real problem was in his telescopic sight. It reflected light. Any ray of sunlight, no matter how weak, created a glare visible hundreds of meters away. German snipers were trained to look for exactly that, the deadly lens reflection that gave away the enemy's position. But that morning, something was different about Brophy's scope. Something that German military manuals considered technically impossible. Something so simple it seemed absurd. A burned Zippo lighter, blackened by soot, had been used on the scope's lens. No reflection. Invisible. Lethal. Brophy pulled the trigger. One shot. The German observer fell. In the next 40 minutes, 7 more enemy soldiers tried to occupy that post. None could identify where the shots were coming from. They all died without firing a single shot. What happened that day was the result of an accidental discovery made by American soldiers in Normandy 6 months earlier. An innovation so simple that it was never officially documented by military manuals, but which saved hundreds of lives and changed how snipers operated on the battlefield. To understand the genius of this solution, one must understand the deadly problem Allied snipers faced in 1944. Telescopic sights were essential for long-range shots, allowing precision beyond 500 meters. But they had a critical flaw. Glass lenses reflected light. On a sunny day, the reflection from a telescopic sight could be seen more than 800 meters away. It was like turning on a lighthouse, pointing directly at the enemy. German counter-sniper manuals were clear. Look for the glow. The lens will betray him before he fires. Corporal James Henderson of the 2nd Ranger Battalion described in his personal diary, "I saw 3 of our best snipers die in the first week in Normandy. All in the same way. They positioned themselves, adjusted the scope, and seconds later, a German shot hit them in the head. The Germans weren't seeing our soldiers. They were seeing the reflection of the scopes." The survival rate of Allied snipers in the first months after D-Day was alarming. Only 40% survived the first 2 weeks in combat. The main cause was not lack of skill, but premature detection caused by lens reflection. The U.S. Army tried various solutions. Dark fabrics over the lenses reduced visibility. Positioning in shadows helped, but drastically limited tactical options. Some units tried applying black grease to the lenses, but this blurred the vision and compromised accuracy. Nothing worked effectively. The solution came from where it was least expected, not from a military laboratory or specialized engineers, but from an ordinary soldier facing the suffocating heat of the Norman summer. Private First Class Thomas "Tommy" Riker of the 1st Infantry Battalion, 29th Division, was entrenched near St. Lo when he noticed that his Zippo lighter's chrome surface was reflecting sunlight directly toward German positions. It was dangerous. Any glare could attract enemy fire. Riker had a simple idea. He held the Zippo over the flame of his own lighter until the soot from incomplete combustion completely covered the metallic surface. The result was a matte black layer that eliminated any and all reflection. The Zippo became invisible even under direct sunlight. While examining the result, Riker looked at his telescopic sight shining in the sun and had a flash of insight. What if I did the same with the lens? He took the Zippo, lit it again, and held the scope lens over the flame. Slowly, a thin layer of soot began to deposit on the glass. The effect was immediate and surprising. The carbon layer eliminated the reflection without significantly compromising visibility through the lens. It was like a primitive but incredibly effective anti-reflective filter. Riker tested the blackened scope during a night patrol. For the first time in weeks, he managed to maintain his position for more than 20 minutes without being detected. When he finally fired, the German target fell without even identifying the source of the shot. In the following days, Riker shared the technique with other snipers in his unit. The results were dramatic. The survival rate of snipers using blackened scopes rose to 78% in the first 2 weeks of combat. More importantly, their effectiveness skyrocketed. Now, they could remain hidden for hours, observing and eliminating high-value targets. Riker's discovery was never officially adopted by American military manuals. There were no technical reports, no laboratory tests, no formal command orders. But that didn't stop the technique from spreading like wildfire among frontline snipers. Soldiers shared the secret in nightly conversations, in the trenches, during rare moments of rest. Burn your lens. Use a Zippo. 3 seconds on each side. Don't let it burn too much or you won't see anything. By August 1944, it was estimated that 60% of American snipers in France were using some form of the burn Zippo technique. The method was so simple that even soldiers without formal sniper training began applying it to their standard rifle scopes. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Howard, commander of a sniper unit, wrote in an after-action report in September 1944, "I have observed that our men are modifying their scopes with lighter soot. Although not an official procedure, the results in the field are undeniable. I recommend the command consider this practice until an official solution is implemented." The recommendation was never officially accepted. The Army feared that soot could permanently damage expensive optical lenses or compromise accuracy in varying light conditions. But on the battlefield, where survival was more important than regulations, the technique continued to spread. What made the Zippo technique particularly devastating was that the Germans never managed to understand what had changed. Suddenly, Allied snipers who were previously easy to detect became invisible ghosts. German counter-sniper manuals, considered the best in the world, were based on 3 fundamental principles: detecting the muzzle flash, identifying the scope reflection, and observing suspicious movements. With the German intelligence reports from October 1944 show growing confusion. Enemy snipers are operating at distances exceeding 600 meters without being detected by conventional methods. New optical equipment or improved training is suspected. Investigation is recommended. The German investigation never discovered the truth. When they occasionally captured American rifles with blackened scopes, they interpreted the soot as accumulated combat dirt, not an intentional modification. The simplicity of the solution made it invisible even to experienced engineers. Sergeant Klaus Reinhardt, a German sniper captured in December 1944, was interrogated about the new American tactics. His response was revealing. They simply disappeared. We used to find them by the glare of the lenses. Now, it's as if they're ghosts. We don't know where they are until it's too late. Between July 1944 and May 1945, combat records show a dramatic transformation in the effectiveness of Allied snipers. Although it is impossible to attribute all the credit to the Zippo technique, the data is impressive. The casualty rate among American snipers fell from 60% to 22% between July and December 1944. Simultaneously, the average number of targets eliminated per sniper increased from 3.2 to 8.7 before being killed or seriously wounded. During the Battle of Hurtgen Forest in November 1944, one of the bloodiest battles of the Western Front, American snipers using the Zippo technique were responsible for eliminating 47 German officers in just 2 weeks. The loss of leadership in the field caused significant disorganization in enemy lines. Corporal Martin Fisher documented in his memoirs, "I spent 3 days positioned in a tree with my scope blackened. I observed a crossroads used by German patrols. I eliminated 11 enemy soldiers in 72 hours. None of them knew where the shot came from. No German sniper could locate me." During Operation Market Garden, British and American snipers who adopted the technique managed to maintain control of critical areas for periods much longer than expected, delaying German counterattacks and saving the lives of isolated airborne troops. The real test of the technique came during the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944. Conditions were the worst possible: snow, dense fog, sub-zero temperatures. Reduced visibility made every shot even more critical. It was in this scenario that Sergeant William Brophy demonstrated the lethal power of the blackened scope. Positioned in an abandoned barn at -15 degrees Celsius, Brophy used his Zippo soot-treated scope to systematically eliminate German observers directing artillery fire. In a single day, February 3, 1945, Brophy eliminated 14 high-value targets without being detected once. His position was discovered only when Allied forces advanced and took the territory. The Germans never managed to locate him during the combat. Lieutenant James Oakley, an observer who accompanied Brophy, reported, "I watched every shot. The Germans were clearly looking for him, but they couldn't see a thing. Normally, after the third or fourth shot, counter-snipers would have identified our position. This time, nothing. It was like we were invisible." Throughout the Battle of the Bulge, Allied snipers equipped with blackened scopes were responsible for eliminating more than 300 German officers and artillery observers, significantly contributing to the disorganization of enemy forces during critical moments of the battle. The genius of the Zippo technique lay in its simplicity. The soot deposited on the lens functioned as a primitive anti-reflective coating. The thin layer of carbon absorbed light instead of reflecting it, eliminating the characteristic glare that betrayed snipers. Unlike previous attempts with grease or fabric, the combustion soot was extremely thin and relatively uniform. When applied correctly, it reduced perceived light through the lens by only 10 to 15%, an acceptable sacrifice considering the tactical advantage gained. The technique was also reversible. Soldiers could wipe off the soot with a damp cloth when necessary, restoring the original lens. This allowed for tactical flexibility, blackened scopes for daytime operations in open terrain, clean lenses for night operations where reflection was not a problem. Interestingly, decades later, manufacturers of military optical equipment would develop sophisticated anti-reflective coatings based on complex chemical principles. But these modern coatings do essentially the same thing that the soot from a Zippo lighter did in 1944, absorb light instead of reflecting it. After the war, the Zippo technique simply disappeared from official military records. There is no mention of it in post-war training manuals. No formal study was conducted. No medal was awarded to Thomas Riker for his discovery. When the U.S. Army began developing telescopic sights for the Korean War, engineers rediscovered the need for anti-reflective coatings, developing complex chemical solutions without ever recognizing that ordinary soldiers had already solved the problem a decade earlier with a simple lighter. Veterans who used the technique rarely talked about it, assuming it was common knowledge or simply an improvised adaptation that didn't deserve special attention. Many of those who survived thanks to blackened scopes died without ever knowing they had participated in one of the most elegant tactical innovations of World War II. Today, military telescopic sights cost thousands of dollars and incorporate state-of-the-art anti-reflective technology. But the fundamental principle remains the same as what an ordinary soldier accidentally discovered while trying to hide his lighter from enemy view. Here at War Secrets, this story fascinates me for one very specific reason. It wasn't expensive technology that changed the game. It wasn't scientists in secret labs. It was an ordinary soldier facing a real problem, finding a simple solution with what he had at hand. While researching this story, I found dozens of similar innovations that never made it into the history books. Soldiers adapting equipment, improvising solutions, surviving with creativity instead of just following orders. These stories are rarely told because there is no glamour in them. There are no secret superweapons or revolutionary technology. But it is these small innovations, born of necessity and the survival instinct, that often make the difference between victory and defeat, between life and death. The soldier who burned a Zippo to hide his glare and had the vision to apply the same idea to his scope saved not only his own life, but potentially hundreds of other soldiers. And this reminds us of something important. The true heroes of war are not only those who receive medals. They are also those who think, adapt, improvise, and share their discoveries. Thomas Riker was never decorated for his innovation. He likely died without knowing that his idea spread to thousands of soldiers. But his contribution to the war was as significant as many weapons that cost millions to develop. Perhaps even more, because it came from the most unlikely place and cost the U.S. Army exactly $0. If you like this story, subscribe to the War Secrets channel. Every week, we bring fascinating stories you won't find elsewhere. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss any episodes. And leave a like if you think combat creativity deserves to be remembered as much as major battles. Because here, we don't just tell the official story. We unearth the secrets that truly made a difference. See you in the next episode. And remember, sometimes the greatest innovations come from the simplest places.